All right, we're going to crack on. So I'd like to introduce Owen Johnston. Owen began his brewing journey in 2005 when he built the largest craft brewery in Tasmania. He worked as the head brewer at Moo Brew for 10 years before turning his focus to bringing Aussie flavour hops to brewers around the world. He has a degree in an MBA from the University of Tasmania and a Master of Science from the International Centre for Brewing and Distilling at Heriot-Watt University in Scotland, which formed the foundation of his extensive understanding of the supply chain from the hop farm to the brewery floor. And if you would like to ask Owen a question, please use the app, or we might allow some, we've got time for some hands up, but the app makes it a lot easier. So thank you and welcome, Owen.
All right, thanks very much. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and continuing custodians on the land on which we meet today. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present today. Okay, so today I'd like to take you on a journey, on a bit of a narrative through the recent work we've achieved orientated on delivering increased quality to brewers through our performance of our hops and show you some of the exciting plans we have in store for a really significant capital investment in a new pellet plant. And I also have some some very cool tools and some insights from the farm, and I want to show those so that we can pursue this narrative of quality improvements right from how we manage our farm through processing, and then we're going to go into a bit of a conversation about our attitude to selections and what our objectives are in creating our blends that go into our final pellet lots. I do really want to see some questions. Some of this stuff triggers people, so let's have some questions too. Now, just looking around the room, there's lots of familiar faces, so thank you for making yourselves available and taking your time out to come and hear about HPA's evolution. You probably know HPA quite well. We're Australia's biggest hop farmer, backed by a team of experts in plant breeding, in farming operations, customer service, and our technical sales crew, all ex-brewers themselves. We farm more than 800 hectares across northeast Victoria and southern Tasmania, and we're on track to produce more than 2,000 tonnes in the near future. This constitutes about 90% of the output of hops here in Australia, so we really do represent the lion's share of hop production nowadays. It wasn't always so, but this is the current state. In contrast to that, it represents about 2% of the world's production. All right, so we're a tiny piece of the puzzle, but a very important piece of the puzzle. We're also the regional representative of the Bath-Haas group of hop trading companies worldwide, and the Bath-Haas Group has operations in the growing regions of Germany, the UK, up in the northwest Pacific of Yakima. And what it does for our local brewing audience is give unsurpassed access to supply chain power, buying power, and our ability to import the highest quality imported hop varieties to support our local portfolio. We have access to a really powerful technical support network through the group, and it's always a pleasure to bring that sort of knowledge, as we did yesterday at a full-day Hops Academy in the lead up to the conference here. So it's always excellent to bring that technical horsepower to the benefit of local brewers. I'll whiz through these because we've talked about these quite a bit. HPA's been on a pivot from 100% bittering around about quite recently, really. 2008, we were still 100% orientated on growing hops for bittering. In 2021, we actually achieved a 100% departure from that, and we only grow what we describe as flavour-orientated hops now. You can see, if I can find the pointer, some pretty significant milestones up here. 2009, the commercialisation of Galaxy, Vic Secret, the expansion programs here. 2014, $15 million invested in infrastructure upgrades, modernisation of kilning and picking technologies. 2018, further investment, this time in new productivity, new land, new poles, new wires, new plants in the ground. And most recently, 2020, the commercialisation of Eclipse, which is our newest hop and is still going really well. To view it a different way, this is our increasing acreage and production, and you can see there it's not all smooth sailing. We have crop outcomes influenced by weather and seasonality, and we've been on quite a steady progression though. But the increases in acreage and production have, for the time being, paused. After this campaign of productivity expansion, it's quite natural then that our company has turned to the last piece of that puzzle, which is processing. So we've got land, we've got picking capacity. What we really needed to turn our focus to is the modernisation of our pelleting plants and the capacities thereof. So we've purchased this, the Tobacco Cooperative of Victoria building here, these 4 sheds, totalling 22,000 square metres under those roofs. So just think about that. We've heard about Bunnings from Bernard Salt already this morning, so picture the 2 biggest Bunnings stores you've ever been in side by side, right? It's a big shed. This is going to create a real focal point for our operations in the northeast of Victoria. The project's going to run to something like $30 million, and is although primarily aimed at modernisation and productivity gains, this investment really crystallises meaningful benefits for brewers, and we'll get into those shortly. Just for a sense of place, some of you will have been to see our facilities up in the northeast. The Buffalo, and here's the Ross Trevor Hop Gardens. So the journey from Yakandanda Road here, from A to B, 9 minutes, and from the processing site to Ross Trevor, just 14 minutes down the road. Okay, so you guys will love all these pictures of equipment, right? So the new pellet plant will involve transitioning away from our 2 sites, currently 2 pellet plants, one in Victoria, one in Tasmania, both running 1960s-ish equipment, capable of producing 10 tonnes a day each in the finished T90 pellets. We're going to transition to 1 pellet plant with a state-of-the-art variable form fill seal machine, temperature-controlled zones, and capable of producing in excess of 50 tonnes a day. So what does all that mean for brewers, and why should brewers be excited about this kind of project? What outcomes are there for brewers? So the throughput will allow us to pellet our entire harvest within 50 days of completion. Okay, we know that time in bale directly affects the overall quality of the outcome. This timeliness of processing is going to be supported by a complete cold chain from the bale stores, trucking, 3PL logistics, the second leg of trucking to stage at the pellet plant, all refrigerated, arresting some of those degradation and oxidation reactions that we know affect quality. So this kind of endeavour and this timeliness of processing, the temperature control, it's a pretty simple paradigm. These are controlling and minimising the degradation of volatile oil compounds. This is the crux of the benefit for brewers with us investing in state-of-the-art processing. We expect to see higher retained oil in the finished pellet, and we expect to deliver that in a context of lower HSI. So that's just for a little hop recap, that's hop storage index. That's a spectrophotometric method of ratio between oxidised and unoxidised alpha, a proxy for staling. Okay, so this is really important, right? More bang for your buck, more oil retained in a fresher setting. And that's really important because not only bang for buck is important, but we think that the actual context of HSI in delivering good flavours. All right, so higher oil is not the only variable that we think impacts the nature of the quality you get, the quality outcomes you get from your pellet. Okay, so we're looking forward to bringing this on. Let's have a little, let's have a run through the floor plan here. All right, so this is all cold store, bale storage. Bales queued up, picked in sequence for the bale blend, in through the bale breaker. Just for some context, we'll be debagging a bale a minute. So that's fair hucking along, right? That's if you have a visual impression of a hot bale, getting one of those open every minute is quite a challenge. Into the hammer mill, through the pellet die, cooling and bins here, into the variable form fill seal machine, carton former and a robotic palletizer, and out into finished goods storage. This is probably one of the more important evolutions from where we are today to where we're going. Fully temperature controlled zones, direct cooling on the mill and in a cool box for the die itself. We take a lot of our cues from our sister company in America, who is John I. Haas. They've recently finished a couple of pellet line upgrades, so we're immensely grateful for the technical support they were able to give us. So, I think it would be natural for me to take a question at this point that says, "Owen, that's all crop 2024. We're still dealing with crop 23 outcomes. You know, what did you do this year to increase quality for the brewer?" I think that's a fair question. And I'll take you through a couple of things that we've been doing. So, one of them is standardised farming practices. We've been bringing our operational procedural basis of our 2 or 3 locations as close as possible, whilst acknowledging some site differences. You know, we have a comprehensive quality management system and some newly formed resourcing in our Ag Services department to centralise our knowledge base, to apply consistent, rational, scientific approach to how we influence fundamental things: herbicides, pesticides, fertiliser, training, stringing dates. To sort of highlight how we are in control of what happens on our farm, and that our outcomes are not random, that we are informed by our observations of the season, and we make situational assessments and decisions with quality delivery in mind. I want to take you through a bit of a case study from this year. So this was in the 2023 growing season. You'll remember back, we had some flooding events late last year from southeast Queensland all the way down through sort of northeast Victoria, and they were very close to the farm. The damaging weather patterns were very close to the farm, but we managed to avoid any actual storm damage. What we did get was a hell of a lot of water. And the origin of the problem, let me set the context here, okay? This is the Snowy Highway here, off down here toward Bright. And this is the Ovens River, zigzagging up. These are our hop fields. The origin of the problem here is this 90-degree bend. When the Ovens is in flood, the water just pushes straight out of that corner, straight into here. It's quite problematic. But we've got some very neat tools we now use to create this early identification of what impact we might see on the productivity of these fields. Let me simplify it by taking out the satellite imagery, and I'll leave you with this digital elevation mapping. So, anyone heard of LiDAR before? It's pretty cool. Light detection and ranging for digital elevation mapping. Okay, so we can get a topographic map and we can make some decisions about, or we can see where the water courses go. Here's the Ovens here. Here's the troublesome bends in the river. The origin of the problem here is that when water passes off this corner into this paddock, it doesn't flow back to the Ovens. It hits these watercourses and flows all the way back over to here into a little creek called the Happy Valley Creek, which is also conveniently flooding at that time. So the water is draining this way and it sits through these paddocks, and this is the origin of the impact, potential impact on quality and yield. Later in the growing season, so we know it's rained lots, we've got wet paddocks. Let's understand where that water's going. The growing season progresses and the canopy starts to develop, and we change our tech and we go out to a satellite-based infrared. Think of this as somewhat of an arbitrary scale, and we can measure a couple of different things, but they tell us roughly the same information that we want to know. How dense is the canopy? And if you look at some of these yellow blocks, you would say that is normal. There's a target right there. Some of these flood-affected blocks, very low canopy density. And in fact, that's a forestry block that's been logged, and that should be a block of hops, okay? So the canopy density by this technology is kaput. Okay, again, great, we've got all this data. Don't collect data if you're not going to use it to make decisions, all right? Don't collect stuff that you're not going to use. So what do we do with this? We come in to harvest. We understand the origin of an issue. We've been watching canopy development, and we come back to the guidance and the guide rails that we set for ourselves that we use every harvest, around harvest time. These are the variables, hopefully you can read those: cone weight, alpha acid betas, total metabolites, but we really look through essential oil content and dry matter. As the cone matures, it dries out. So as a measure of maturity there. Now you can see some of these variables are in direct competition with others. So cone weight and oil, for instance, are somewhat antagonistic. So we need to make a choice about where, in managing these variables, where we harvest. This is active decision making. We have guide rails and standard operating specs for each variety. So we're looking at those blocks that have been water affected, we understand canopy density, we're walking the fields, we're applying the interpretation of the infield data as we come in to harvest to make sensible decisions. This sequence here is it's somewhat of a time series just for reference, not particularly relevant right now. But you can see if you're looking for Galaxy, a thiol-dominated flavour profile, you have to wait. You have to achieve a certain higher level of maturity, maybe a higher percentage of dry matter to accumulate these essential oils that are so important in delivering a true to type Galaxy. Okay, so we're trying to balance all that stuff and make great decisions. It positions us, collecting all that data positions us to make those good decisions. So I've showed you some cool toys that we are, some tech that we're embracing, but it's not all that we are doing to drive quality. So I've got a couple other things I'd like to show. I've got some quality projects here. This one in relation to the Tasmanian kiln. We realised that we had some inconsistent temperature profiling in the kiln building. We wanted to understand what was driving that and what impact it might have been having. We did a number of seasons, over a number of years, simply collecting data in the kiln performance, tracking air temperatures, and we ended up stripping the plenum chamber walls down. So the plenum chamber is that big empty space under the kiln floor. The furnace blows hot air into the plenum chamber. It's used to homogenise, even out air currents and present a nice uniform flow of warm air underneath the kiln. We stripped the walls down, put brand new insulation in the plenum chambers, and we were able to track and demonstrate an increased control or a lower variability in the temperatures we were seeing it through production. So this, I'll just get my numbers straight here. So it was obviously ageing quite badly. It was 30 years since that insulation went in. When it went in, it was at an R 1.5, if you guys know the R values there. This replacement stuff is R5. and it resulted in us being able to show a kiln fuel saving of LPG of 200 millilitres per kilo of wet hop dried. That calculates out at something like 86,000 litres of LPG not burnt, okay, through a process like this. So benefits directly on kiln floor control, benefits in stability in the conditioning room and the performance of conditioning hops, and clearly a sustainability agenda there. Here's another case, and certainly this one in response to some valuable feedback from customers on the performance of Galaxy over the last couple of years. We went back, we weren't establishing great trends in the quality feedback we were getting. Where quality wasn't up to snuff, we weren't able to tease out the trends. So we went back to some really fundamental principles around how we protect our hops from damage and deterioration. Looked at the role of the primary packaging. What is that? That's the foil. So foils perform a critical role in a physical barrier, protecting the product, and the multi-laminate foil is a pretty cool thing. It's a very tough item to recycle because of the different layers in the mylar foil, but there are different layers achieving different objectives: physical protection, oxygen barrier, etc. So a review of the material specs led us to increase the thickness of the aluminium layer 30%. We ended up with an overall a 36% increase in the thickness of the foil. This is pretty significant stuff. And investing in these upgrades will improve the protection of the product from processing and deterioration through shipping. And it just makes sense, right? It's the primary package. It will look after the product, and it will result in a higher quality outcome for brewers when it's delivered to the brewery. Another thing we worked on quite a lot through the 2023 was our process of what we call NCR reporting, non-conformance reporting through production, and the overlaying of sensory screening to verify the non-conforming material that is generated. So through our production, our operators can report any non-conforming material they see. It could be, let's take a simple example. They're loading a kiln floor and it's brown, not green. Okay, they raise a flag on that material. What that triggers is a physical process of taking a sample and getting it to the ad hoc panel of people who are responsible for interrogating that physically and through sensory and ruling it out of contention for blending into the final lots. Okay, so we have had this process for a long time. What we added this year was a statistical review of COA data from every single bale, and anything that was found to be outlying from a data sense. Now that could be high HSI or low oil for two really easily accessible metrics, and that could raise an NCR and have material gathered for us to review in sensory. This dual-layered faults through production, fault identification through production, and a review of hard data to also identify outlying material really set us up. And I think we ran something like material representing something like 300 tonnes through our sensory program, which led to quite a bit of material being excluded from the final blends. The last piece of the puzzle, although it is a little bit disjointed in a time sense, is that we do lab scale brewing on all our finished pellet lots to be that final piece of the puzzle that says these things do perform. This is Galaxy true to type. So all up, lay it in. This becomes really fundamental process control and production QA that makes us have the highest confidence that we're delivering quality product out to you guys. So we've been through sensory, let's go back. We're looking at our production in the paddocks. We've got those tools I've showed you where we've got quality systems that are live and well. We've got sensory verification and exclusion of poor material. Okay, we've determined that we have this much Galaxy to put into a blend and make pellet lots out of. What is our blending objective? And we are absolutely clear about what our blending objectives are, and that is to produce the highest possible average quality with the lowest possible variance. The NIR analysis is this in-house developed technology using near-infrared. It allows us to generate the full suite of COA data about 5 minutes after a bale is pressed. Right, this is going to, we're the only hop company in the world using this technology, and it provides us with the most timely data to put our lens across and include or exclude material from the blends. All right, so Galaxy is the last hop not to have a whole of crop approach, and so this move to the new pellet plant in Myrtleford will allow us to take the whole Galaxy crop and apply our philosophical standpoint to producing this level of quality. I've just been given the hurry up, so I'm going to move on. If we're allowed to conduct our farming operations, apply our quality systems, we're laser focused on what our blending outcomes are, we process it in a timely manner, we will get the right result. But there are other reasons why HPA does not offer selections to brewers as they do, say, in the US experience. Okay, at its fundamentals, merchants offer selections when there is a wide diversity of material coming in to them. Now, here in Australia, please keep in mind, we are one company. We are the only people who grow Galaxy. We crossed Galaxy. We learnt how to grow it. We grow it, we process it, and we pack it into its final pack. We are not 1,000 growers in the Hallertau. We're not even 100 growers in Yakima. Okay, we are not across multiple US states. We're across 2 locations. We have unified farming practices throughout our business to make sure that the differences in those locations are accounted for as much as we can. We firmly believe that the fundamental drivers of why selections matter in other hop growing regions do not necessarily apply to us. To package that entire crop in the shortest possible time ensures the highest possible crop outcomes. Any interruption to that will diminish the overall quality outcome. Okay, the last slide coming up, okay? So we've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully this last slide, I'll talk to the patterns in this slide, and hopefully this can bring this level of confidence in everything I've just said about why we don't offer selections and all of the quality work we do. Hopefully it can bring it home for you. This is a violin plot. It's a statistical visualisation, which is a bit more exciting than a box and whiskers plot. I've gone overtime. They've killed me. They've killed me. I'll just have to speak up. Yep. All right, so I prefer to shout anyway. Okay, so this represents 100% of the T90s for Galaxy over the last few crop years. This is just a little bit more intuitive for me than a classic box and whiskers plot for statistical descriptors. You can see a couple of really strong trends here. Clearly the mean is increasing across these crop years, but the standard deviations is not coming down. Okay, so we're delivering a higher average oil in the finished pellet, but there's still quite a lot to lot variation, okay, from the best to the highest to the lowest. In 2022, we took a slightly different approach, and of course we're learning about what drives quality outcomes, and you can see a pretty significant shift in the shape of the data of oil in a finished pellet. And this blob here in 2023 represents 100% of the Galaxy T90s, okay? This for me is an outstanding result in trying to pursue that very clear blending objective, highest possible average, lowest possible variance, and you can see we have cut the variance out of our delivered quality. And it is my humble opinion that Galaxy ranging between, I think this is about 2.6 and this is 3.1 or 2, in that low HSI context, due to our timely processing, this, anywhere in this cloud of data here, will perform. Okay? These are sustainable. These are sustainable highs. This Glory Hunter up here at 4 mils of oil in the pellet, I can't guarantee that we'll do that later. Okay? And I think brewers will recognise that we're all under a bit of pressure to make consistent beer. Our consumer wants confidence that that beer he loved last week is going to be great this week. And the way HPA fits into that consumer confidence piece is that we need to deliver consistent, high quality material, just like you guys do to the consumers. So this is how I see our performance being as high as possible, with the lowest possible variance, as we say that we are not going to offer selections. The pressure is on us to live this out and deliver this promise of trustworthy, high quality, low variance, finished pellet quality. Thanks, Jack. What do you expect to see with your Tas-grown hops in final product quality now the pellet operation will happen in Victoria? Does the time of freight between farm to pellet plant have major impacts, or is there much the same given the Tas plant runs slower? Great question. So there is a logistics piece. We're going to have to move between 400 and 500 tonnes of baled hops from Bushy Park to Burnie on the boat, off in Melbourne, up the Hume, over to Myrtleford. Pretty significant logistical operation. We are looking to address that through full cold chain from Bushy to Myrtleford. And you are right in the sense that at the moment our pellet run is more than 50 days. So net time in bale is going to come down, even though the logistical complexity of moving that crop increases. Mickey Mouse.
AJ, you've brought out new products like Spectrum, Incognito, whatnot. Is there any plan to bring out like a Cryo Syntx sort of type product for our Australian hops?
Yeah, again, great question, thank you. So enrichment has benefits. The benefits to brewers about reduced vegetative material, etc., are reasonably well understood. We have the suite of Aussie varieties either released or being released in liquid products like Spectrum for dry hopping or Incognito for hot side and whirlpool applications. And at the moment, we actually see, it's a little bit philosophical really, we see the end game in liquids. If we are looking at sustainability initiatives in reducing CO2 emissions through transport or even efficiencies in beer recovery, we think that enriched pellets only go a certain way, only go a certain distance to that objective, and liquids are a more compelling proposition in that sense. The other fundamental reason is that at the moment our 6 proprietaries are all very high alpha already. So both Topaz and Vic Secret, for example, came in above 20% alpha by Spectro this year. Enrichment of that stuff will only get you to, say, 25% alpha, and you'll still lose, up to 50% of the material going through the enrichment process. So that is going to bump the price of these things up almighty for marginal benefit. Okay, so there's a sort of a diminished benefit as enrichment is applied to our varieties. All right, thank you very much, everyone.